Hi guys, Tim here, and yeah, there's been a lot going on. So today we're going to get in the Jetta, we're going to head up to the workshop, and I'm going to tell you all about what we've been doing. And yes, this Jetta is on the road. So again, that's one of the things we haven't had a chance to talk about. Now let me tell you what's been going on as we drive up to the workshop. So I'm on my way up to the workshop and we're going to take a look at our Mark II press car. So we're going to have a look and see everything that this car needs to get it back on the road. Now, if you remember, I bought it completely unseen. I just kind of got told about it, sent a tow truck and went and bought it. So now we need to have a look and see what I've got myself into. I'm guessing it's probably not been one of my most sensible moves to date, but hey, look guys, that's what happens when you get locked up for a whole year and you've only got the internet for company. So guys, with that in mind, let's head up to the workshop and see what that car needs. But where have you been, you might be asking? So of course, we've had a lot going on and it hasn't made for particularly great videos, and I just didn't want to put videos out for the sake of putting videos out. So guys, apologies, we've been gone a little while. But the truth is, we were moving out of our old workshop. Now, that old workshop was absolutely massive, and we've actually still got Jeffrey in there at the moment, but it's pretty much empty other than that. So it's a huge space. And as you can see, there was a lot of stuff that would have been in here. So when you look at this, there was probably space for the best part of maybe 22 cars in here. Now the new workshop is a lot smaller, which is a shame, and we've had to make some sacrifices. We've had to get rid of some bits I really would have liked to keep. None of them were Mark II Golfs, but some of them were great parts cars that, to be honest, I've let some really good bits go. So we've got the hard part over and done with. So guys, we'll be back to normal, uploading loads more videos this year. And of course, the good news, as of tomorrow, the pubs are open, restaurants are open, the UK is starting to get back to normal. So it means that we can get out and do things. So I've been vaccinated, yay! But also, so's Sam, so's Mr. Ed, so everyone up the barn is vaccinated. So there's so much that we can get on and do over the next coming weeks and months. So I'm hoping this year is going to be a lot better for everyone, and we can all start to get back to the things that we love and start to get back to kind of a sense of normal. So with that in mind, I'm just on my way up to the workshop. We're going to take a look at this Mark II press car, see what I've got myself into. How much of a mistake was it buying this car? And of course, what am I going to need to do to put it right? So let's have a look and see everything that's wrong with my VW press car. So here we are in the old workshop. So there's plenty of space around us because there is pretty much nothing else in here. We've got the silver Jetta Coupe I brought over from Germany 4 years ago now. So as you can see, it's on the road, it's a G plate, it's registered, it's been my daily now for a little while. We've not really had a chance to talk about it on the channel, so I will come back to that later in another video. But as you can see, the front badge has fallen out, so the grille itself is actually damaged. I'm going to need to replace that, and that is a job I can do today. But we're here to talk about the press car. So this is my 1984 1.3 CL Golf that was used back at the press launch for the Mark II Golf, and this was given to a journalist for a long-term test for 3 to 4 months when they first launched it. Now, if you watched the last video, you'll know that I bought this car off of a motoring journalist up in Birmingham who's had this ever since he bought it off of Volkswagen back in 1984. So it's been part of their family, it's been loved. It's just one of those that they just parked it up when the heater matrix went, thinking I'll get around to it, and just never did. 11 years later, I end up buying it. So what have I got myself in for? Was it a mistake? Should I really have bought this car? I mean, you know the answer, of course I should have, but what's it going to take to get this back on the road? Was this one of my better purchases, or is this going to be a big financial headache? Let's take a look. Now, as I take a look inside, we'll see what the interior looks like after nearly 40 years. Has it been kind, or are we going to need to do some work here? Now, as we can see, it is really clean in here. It's a basic Mark II interior. So we've got no center console. We've got an old tax disc just chilling out there. But when we look at it, we've got 65,000 miles on the clock. Now, speaking of clocks, it's something that I've only ever seen in my 1984 Jetta Coupe. And I think I'm starting to get a better idea of why. So when we take a look at these, you'll see that we have a second hand. Now, you can see there's power to it. So clearly there is a fault with this clock. That's something that's going to need investigation. When I spoke to the previous owner, he did say that he'd had some issues and the clock was one of them. But it's interesting to see that this is a Motometer clock set. Now, later Mark IIs have got video clocks in them. So video clocks didn't have a second hand. This one does have a second hand. So do you know what? It's these little things that I think is really interesting. But this second hand isn't working, neither's the whole clock. So we're going to have to investigate that. So going across, what have we got? We've got fader switch, which is probably the only option that this car is spec'd with. We've also got this head unit, which I think is an upgrade. It's not the original one because I know the original one's in the boot, and I mentioned that in the last video. So we've got what is an aftermarket head unit, I guess. So it's not the original one, but if you look at it, you probably would have seen this in a 90s spec Mark II Golf. So it's still pretty cool, might make its way into one of my other ones. But as we can see, it needs a code. Now, I'm sure I saw a code in the history with this car, and this car has got an awful lot of history. So that's something else to do, not a big job. And to be honest, I'd like to put the original stereo back in. Or is it just hungry? Does it just want cod? I mean, I could do some fish and chips right now. Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. To be fair, I'm always hungry. Look at the size of me. But anyway, back to the car. Now, what I did notice is one of the seats is worn, which is a real shame because it's only got 65,000 miles and the history backs it up. I guess it's just cheap budget materials back in the day that haven't really lasted well. So it's quite common on a Mark II. I'm surprised to see it on one with this few miles, but that's right, you guessed it. The bolster is worn on this seat. And I mean, it's like straw, or who knows what that is. I'm sure someone does. If you do, leave it in the comments, but look at it. Anyway, that's going to need replacing. So it's a real shame because the rest of the interior is absolutely immaculate. And the real kick in the teeth is I threw a set of these seats out only a few months ago. I was clearing this workshop out to move into the new workshop across town, and I thought I'm never going to need those. If only I'd known. And this is the problem with moving from this workshop to the new one, is that I've thrown out so many things that I've kept hold of and kind of hoarded for a while, thinking these are really cool, I could need these. And when it comes to it, yeah, do you know what? I kind of need them. From maybe 100, 150 pounds, I can hopefully have this interior back to original. So we need to fix that clock and we need to change this seat. So the seat is definitely going on the list to go down and see Matt Palmer at Mark II Spares and buy a replacement. And the clock, I'm not sure. Now, body-wise, this car looks really straight from a distance. And do you know what? Considering it's been sat there on a drive for 11 years, yeah, it's not in bad shape. But as you can imagine, because it's been sat on a drive for the last 11 years, it's going to need some work. Now, we take a look at the bottom of the wings here. Now, they're a bit crusty. The under seal, or the factory stone guard rather, is coming away, as you can see there. And there's a little sort of bit of rot here, but they're actually quite solid. So that there is literally just the factory stone guard. So we can probably save these wings. Yeah, they're pretty solid. What isn't as solid is the back here. So unfortunately, this rear arch at the bottom of the sill has seen better days. So you can see here that again, it's the factory stone guard has come away and it's started to rot. Now we've actually got a hole just here. So you can see behind here, it's kind of, oh, it's all coming away. Look at that. So we've got a bit of a hole here, which isn't great. So that's going to need some attention. Oh, look at that. That's just the sound of my wallet crying. Now, as we look in here, we can see that, again, this is not good. So we're going to have to spend some money down here. Now, looking at the rest of it, it's actually pretty solid. Again, the bottoms of the arches seem good. There's a little bit of sort of rot there, but again, I can sand it back, treat it, and that'll be okay. So, looking at the rear suspension, my word. Okay. I mean, the struts and the springs look terrible, so I'm going to have to replace those. I've already priced it up for a complete suspension kit for this to fit standard shocks and springs is about £250. And I'm going to need to get that welding done. I haven't got a clue what that's going to cost. And this is sort of one of those things that people always ask the question is, what does it cost to get a Mark II welded? What does it cost to get a Mark II painted? I don't know is the honest answer. It's not something I've really had to consider before. So it's going to be interesting to find out what that's going to take to get it back. So I will get that sent away. So I'm not going to do that myself because I can't weld. So I'm going to have to pay someone to do that. So it's going to be an interesting experience to find out what it actually costs to repair. And then of course that's going to need painting. So when I look at it, the bottom of the front arches need painting. Bottom of the rear arch needs painting. And if we look at the bottom of the doors as well, they could do with painting just under the trim, just the bottom half to make it all tidy. Now that should at least freshen this up a bit until I decide if I'm going to fully repaint this car. There's some marks on it and I don't know if it's one of those that I'm going to just say, do you know what, let's just do the whole thing. Again, it's more money, so we'll see. Now let's take a look at what else we've got to do on this car. Right, so as I take a look at the front of the car, it all looks pretty straight. Now, there's some little bits of rot just under here. So again, to freshen that up, I'll just repaint that trim. That's no big deal whatsoever. Now, I have noticed that this grille has got a chrome strip around some of it. Now, some of it's worn away, some of it's still there. So I'm gonna have to see if I can get a replacement, which will be interesting. But other than that, it's a nice early grille. Obviously, it's got this badge, which is becoming harder and harder to get. And looking at it, I mean, you can tell it's just been sat. It's been sat for a very long time, open to the elements. But if we look at the wipers themselves, they're not actually rusty, which is really good news. There's a little bit of grot coming through underneath the windscreen seal there. So again, that's something else to consider. And as we look around here, we can see there's just dirt and moss and everything where it's just been sat. So I'm guessing I need to get this outside and give it a really good clean. Now, as we look down this side, we can see here that, again, the bottom of this wing is, it's seen better days, but it's salvageable. It's not really rotten through. It's just the under seal, the factory stone guard has flaked off where it's just been sat and the rain's just been going on and on and on. Now, as we look here, we've got some moss and stuff inside the arch. Obviously, it didn't come with any arch liners. And again, just looking at the front suspension, it's all seen better days, obviously. But the arches themselves aren't particularly rusty. And you know what, I can work with that. So on the whole, we've got some typical Mark II issues, really. It's not anything that's indicative to it being sat for so long. The wheel arches need a bit of love. Obviously, the back corner of that sill is a bit crusty. Let's take a look at this side. Yes, as we look here, there's no holes here. This is a lot better. So I think this side's okay. Again, the bottom there just needs a bit of tidying up. Same goes for there too. A little bit of tidying up. And if we take care of the paintwork below this sort of this trim here all the way down, hopefully we're not going to see the blending, the difference in paint color, if there is any. We've got a little bit of rot here as well. Again, it's just a couple of little marks that can be dealt with quite easily. And then of course we've got the usual things. We've got the windscreen wipers. As you can imagine, they've not been used in a very long time. Ooh, yeah. Again, really easy, simple fix. Couple of quid. 2-minute job, and that's that sorted. And when we look at the washer jets as well, Okay, yeah, they're going to need scraping out, looking at the state of that. That side not so bad, but still not great. So the paint on this car is really flat and we're going to have to address that. So some of it we can polish out, some of it's going to clearly need painting to get rid of the rust. So all in all, I don't think it's too bad looking around the outside of this car. There's a couple of little bits of paintwork, a couple of bits that need polishing, a couple of bits that need replacing, and obviously a little bit of welding. Now we had a look underneath the car when we bought it, and obviously you can see that it's pretty solid underneath. So I haven't got to worry about that. It looks like the only bit of welding is on the bottom of that rear sill. So yeah, it could have been a lot worse. And to be honest, I've seen a lot worse. So I'm happy with that. So this car needs some work on the outside, and also it's going to need some mechanical work sorting as well. So as well as the suspension and the brakes, they're clearly going to need changing. We're going to have to look at the engine because it's not running particularly well. So I'm guessing it's where it's been sat so long. The carburetor is going to need cleaning and going through. It's had fresh fuel in it. It's probably had about 10 litres of fresh fuel in it. So it should run if it was going to run. It's not a case of it's got 11-year-old fuel in it that's stale. So it's got a brand new battery, it's got fresh fuel in it, and it still doesn't run particularly well. So this is it. This is what buying a car off of someone's drive that's been sat there for 11 years looks like. Would you personally take on a project this size? It needs welding, it needs a full mechanical overhaul, so it needs suspension, it needs brakes, it needs a cam belt water pump, full service kit, plugs, leads, dizzy cap, rotor arm, oil filters, the whole lot. The carburetor needs attention. It's going to need a new exhaust because that is actually blowing and it's in better days. We're going to need to take care of the welding. So as far as it goes, this is quite an involved project. It's lots of little bits that over time would have been done if it had been on the road to keep this car in great condition. But unfortunately, where it has been sat, it has just been left to deteriorate. So we'll get all of the bits done. To start with, we're going to do the cam belt and the water pump, so we know that that cam belt isn't going to snap. I don't want to keep running the car up because that cam belt's been on there since it left the factory, so I'm really not keen on risking damaging the engine. So that's the first job on the list. We're going to transport it over to the other workshop and we'll get started on that. Then once we've done the cam belt and the water pump, we'll do the plugs, leads, oil and filter as well. So we'll make sure that the engine is in great condition, and then we'll tackle the heater matrix, because again, I've already got a box rebuilt, refoamed the flaps, new heater matrix in it. It's almost like I did another video on it. Exactly. So guys, we'll get that fitted, and then I think we just need to tackle all the jobs: suspension, brakes, bushes. So we'll get all of that done, and then we should have a really mechanically sorted Mark II. We've just then got to get that welding done and then decide what we want to do with the bodywork. So I guess the question is, would you take on a project of this size? Have you taken on a project? Let me know. Guys, is this something that, you know, is just part of owning a modern classic these days? Are these little jobs things that you just do every year for the MOT and wouldn't really notice? And it's only because this car's been sat and we have to do it all in one go that it really looks like it's a big list of jobs. But actually, it's not a bad car. It doesn't need a huge amount of work. Maybe £1,500, £2,000 spent on this car and it will be absolutely amazing. So guys, look, thanks for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.